My my Canberra.
You can't see me?
Guys, all right. Well, that was a little foul up right there. My camera wasn't coming on. Thank you, everybody, for being here with us. Our guest tonight is the legendary Sybil Danning, who has been on the screen for a long time now. And I'm proud to say that she is one of my earliest memories of watching her on the screen. Sybil, thank you so much for being here with us tonight. How are you doing?
Well, thank you for having me. I'm glad I could make it because we had power outage until yesterday, so we're good to go today. That's a good sign.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. And we had the same thing going on here. I live just outside of the Washington, D.C. area, and everything was down here yesterday as well. So let's get right to it now. Sybil,
That's
back in.
natural for DC, isn't it? What is ever up in DC?
That's a good point. That's an excellent point. Now let's go back to the 80s. You were considered, for lack of a better term, a big sex symbol from the 70s, 80s, and on. So take us back to that time. And what was it like for you from inside the industry as well as outside the industry being, regarded as a sex symbol? And what was the reaction you were getting from both insiders and outsiders at that time?
Well, when you say the 80s, I had come, it was just a couple of years before that I had come from Europe to Hollywood. And first of all, I was told, "What are you doing here? There are 5,000 actors that aren't working." And I said, "Well, so then it'll be 5,001 unless I change that." And as we got to the 80s, and it was the Reagan era, and I remember in 1980 we had that beautiful um, movie that was basically the last movie, Gloria, where a woman, I think, picked up a gun. So
I remember that.
it it was kind of, women are back behind stoves, and we're doing Rambo and Commando and all the big macho movies. So um, actually, that was a time in the 80s that because the studios weren't doing those movies, I was able to fill that gap. And I was doing the Roger Corman movies
Hmm.
and the B, so-called B movies that were sexy and sword and sorcery and those kind of movies. But also because I had just come from Europe, and in Europe, we were doing a lot of very sexy movies in the 70s that went on into the 80s. I was known as a sex symbol and never a sex object. There's a big difference between
Yes.
that. And I'm very proud of that because it did help me because doing sexy movies in Europe was natural, and being behind the camera, more so in front of the camera, with less clothes on, was not a big deal.
Hmm.
It was just a natural thing because in Europe, and still today,
Yeah.
people go to the swimming pool and women are topless and children are playing there, and you grow up with, in Europe, a body is beautiful. So being a sex symbol was very simple for me there. And coming to Hollywood, um, it made it very continue to make it easy for me to play some roles like that here, more or less clothed. Um, and the reaction was actually very good because when Hugh Hefner came calling, and at first I decided to only do a semi nude layout, he came back and said, no, 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 we have to have you nude. And I got a tremendous deal for a worldwide cover, ended up with 10 pages inside because I said I'm going to do it once and never again. I want to do it the best way I can. It did go worldwide, and my demand was if I'm inside, I have to have the cover. And no matter where it goes, if they take my cover, they have to do the inside. And if they do the inside, they have to put me on the cover. And when I went for auditions, unlike people said, well, you're not going to be able to do anything because 5,000 actors are not working. I walked in the door and it wasn't, I had just done Entebbe, where I was this unattractive woman that plays a terrorist with no makeup and flat shoes and anything but sexy.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't the producers that said, wow, we just saw Entebbe. And I'm very proud of that movie because it was actually also a movie that I got financing for and played the lead and got Klaus Kinski to play the lead. And we ended up with an Oscar nomination.
Wow.
It was that movie that the producers said, you know, that's your calling card, Miss Danning. No, they said, oh, wow, we just saw your Playboy. So to me, that was kind of shocking because I thought, what are the producers going to think? Okay. And they loved it, and I got a lot of roles because of Playboy. So I felt comfortable with it, and obviously the producers loved it, and that got me even serious roles.
That is so excellent. The way you embraced it, and uh, I mean, it's all. It just goes to show how smart of a woman you are back then in what was a man's world, and you were smart enough to take advantage of the opportunities that were offered to you and use them to your advantage. And for people who don't know, that Playboy issue, I believe it was the August 1983 Playboy that you were in and on. Now, so
Wow, I can see you're a collector.
actually, my brother is the collector.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm a married man for 22 years. Yeah, my wife would not appreciate that,
Well,
but
when my fans come to me, I say, "You have the Playboy? I mean, my goodness, you were in diapers when I did that." And they said, "Oh no, it's my dad's. My dad's Playboy. Please sign it for me."
and you also made a great point when it comes to Europe and America. I remember back in the 80s going to Europe with my mom and just picking up a regular magazine. And the ads were showing women topless. This was not like a Playboy type magazine, what would be considered here. It was just a regular magazine. And I'm like, I was 9 years old and I go to my mom, oh my God, look what they're showing. And, I realized as I grew older, and it still is that way today. Here we are in the year 2021, and I would say America, the United States, is really behind the times and way more conservative as compared to Europe. They're still ahead of us in that regard. Why do you think that is?
That's the English background. I mean, if that's the Puritan background, I think, of the history of the United States. Um, for so long, I couldn't understand. When I first came, I mean, there were stricter rules than there are now, but I always said, my God, a naked breast has never hurt anyone. But I mean, I'm on a show, we're talking about that, but I always said, oh, you can cut their ears off and poke their eyes out and shoot them and cut them up, but you can't show a naked breast. Oh my
Yeah.
God, that's terrible. It has to do with the Puritan background and history of the United States. And I think that's
It's
a lot of
amazing.
what it is. I mean, still today, violence in movies is much more popular
Yeah.
than sex movies.
Now,
Okay.
the first movie that I saw you in was Chained Heat, okay? With Linda Blair.
Hmm.
And that movie, back when it came out, it got a lot of attention, if I'm remembering correctly, because, correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't Linda Blair do a topless or a couple of topless scenes in that movie as well?
Oh, we had one together. It was
Yeah,
the obligatory shower scene.
yeah.
And yes, we were both topless in the shower. And she dreaded it. She very much dreaded it. And actually, Linda, bless her soul, I mean, I love her and we see each other all the time. She actually refused to go and do publicity for the movie. So I ended up doing all that. And
Wow.
yeah.
I mean, she, of course, grew to prominence as a little girl in The Exorcist.
Hmm.
And, it got of a lot of attention when Chain Heat came out, because here we have Linda Blair, who played Reagan in The Exorcist, which was a huge movie, and that got the movie Chain Heat a lot of attention. I was young to remember if it was really negative or what, but I do remember that part of it. Do you know? I mean, when she took the role, was she surprised after she took the role that it involved nudity? Was that not disclosed back in those days when actors were negotiating contracts?
No, I think in general that's just her feeling. I don't know, and I never asked her if that was in her contract. I know everything that I did or didn't do was always in my contract, but maybe not every agent or manager is that precise. I just know that she hated those scenes and she, for that reason, didn't want to be really engaged anymore in the movie.
Okay. Okay. Well, that makes sense. Now,
And
before.
Roger Ebert loved that movie.
Yeah.
I met Roger Ebert through my going to Chicago, and we sat in a beautiful restaurant, his favorite, a Sichuan, Chinese Sichuan restaurant in Chicago, sat down and he did an interview with me, and we were friends ever since after that, bless his soul.
Yes.
I love Roger. And he also, when I was in Cannes, he gave me, the first time I was in Cannes, he also gave me the title of, what was that? I think Miss Cannes or something, because of that movie. And after that, he wrote that all over Cannes.
Now, you mentioned that the promotion of that film was pretty much left up to you. And here we are 40 years later, and I just asked you about Linda Blair. Was that the most prominent question you were getting when you were promoting the film back in the 80s? About
Uh,
Linda?
you, you mean about Linda?
Yeah, like were you, and I'm sorry to have to put you in the spot. That's not what I was intending to do. But I just have to ask this last question. When you were promoting the film, did you have to answer a lot of questions about Linda?
I think about the scenes, yes, but not in particular just Linda. I think they just said, "How did you feel about the nude scene that you had with Linda, and the shower scene?" And I always was honest about it.
Hmm.
And Linda knows that. She knows that, and she doesn't have a problem with that. She said, and when I see her today, and I think we only spoke about it once, and I said, you look very beautiful. Your breasts were beautiful, and there was nothing, bad about that scene. So forget about it. Forget about it. And
Yeah.
she kind of has, and we see each other from time to time at the various shows, and she's dedicated to her dogs and her foundation, and I love her. I love her dearly, and we've always been honest about that.
That's
And
great.
I was honest about it when someone asked me, like you, and there's nothing, nothing wrong with that. And
No,
Linda knows about that.
no. Now, going, you have been in front of the camera spanning 5 decades now. You got your break in the late 60s, into the 70s, and into the 80s. What were some of the biggest changes you've noticed? Not so much from the 70s to the 80s, but starting in the 80s when you're, like I said in the beginning, you became a sex symbol. What are some of the biggest changes you noticed in the industry in regard to how women were being treated? did it stay stagnant where women were being treated the same way, not gaining the respect they deserved? Or did you start seeing slow, gradual changes in the right direction?
No, I think there was a slow, gradual change there. And I think it came to actually to a climax, which is we've just passed the Me Too and not even completed it yet. But
Hmm.
I think up to the Me Too beginning, um, there was a change. But I think the Me Too movement actually brought a lot of what was undiscovered and not spoken of to the surface, and I think that was very, very good. And of course, after that, now still dealing with it, but a lot of women having gone through it, and many more, for that reason, many more women came forward and had that opportunity and felt empowered to do so,
Hmm.
has helped. And
Yes,
of course, now it has, it's almost changed to a point where it's very, very difficult. And I've, you know, I mean, I have so many friends in the business that my male friends are have I think more afraid of me than I ever had to be of them. But it's funny when they say, "Oh dear, I don't know if I can kiss you on the cheek," and I said, "Oh come on, a little kiss on the cheek won't hurt me, you know."
yeah.
So it's I think we have to now um, try to neutralize it a little bit
Hmm.
because yes, it has done a lot of harm. Um, and it has changed things, but I think it's gone to such an extreme that it's very, very difficult now to be close to anyone. I mean, just, just talking, sitting, having dinner or a drink or something. So, like everything,
I
my mother
agree.
always said to me, everything with, in Maßen, no, I was just thinking in German, I don't know why. Um, Everything moderately.
Yeah,
It's that way with eating, drinking, it should be that way. I think with your manners and the way um, you give yourself in public, it's always with moderation.
exactly. I completely agree with you. As throughout your career, you have dabbled in almost everything, in front and behind the camera.
I
There,
beg your pardon. You call it dabbling? Okay.
there's a break somewhere in like the 2010s where there's a gap. Did you, at that point, were deciding whether you wanted to retire from the industry and ultimately decided to come back? Or, what were you doing during that time that there is sort of a gap in the films you were doing?
Well, I did, yes, I did go away from Hollywood for a while, but it was totally out of personal reasons,
Okay.
and I felt very good doing so. It's very difficult because, first of all, I didn't come as a young teenager to Hollywood. I already came at an age where most people are over the hill in Hollywood, so to speak. But I came to the Hollywood Hills with the intention of not going over those hills until I say so. So when I decided to go away, it was totally out of personal reasons.
Okay.
And when I decided to come back, um, I decided to come back. And I am back now, and I'm happy about it.
So
I
are
think
we.
in life, there are a lot of things that you plan, and there are things that there's a saying in German, der Mensch denkt und Gott lenkt. That means the human being thinks, but God leads.
Exactly.
And so, you can plan a lot of things, and then something happens, and it goes a different direction, and so you just have to deal with it. Just like with the pandemic now, there's so much going on, and people have to know one thing: with the climate change and the pandemic and everything going on, you just have to be strong and you have to fight through it and you have to keep positive. And things come along that you don't plan with, but you have to deal with it.
Yes.
And so that's that's been my philosophy in life, and you have to be strong. And I know not everyone can do that, but I would hope, and I hope that people will try to do that and come out of this pandemic also with strength. And I think we're getting there.
Me too. Me too. I hope so. I really do hope so.
And
Now,
I'm back. I'm back, and I've decided to end your question there. I've decided to get uh, dig back in. It's not easy because it's kind of like saying goodbye Hollywood, hello Hollywood, and that's not the way it goes. They out of sight, out of mind a lot of
exactly.
times, you know. But that's okay because I do my work behind the scenes, and when I'm back, I'm back. The bitch is back. Well, I just got my okay. I don't think there's too many women even, or even men that can say they got an action figure. And I don't know if you know, but I got my action figure. It's beautiful. Um, Stallone did this. You know, the same company did Stallone, and it's of Saint Exmund from
Wow.
Beyond the Stars. And you know the wonderful cast that was in there, and I'm the only cast, well, so many are gone now and have died, but never was there one character that they decided to make a figure of. And I got my figure now. Shout
Wow.
Factory bought that film from Roger Corman, and Decca did the figure. It's beautiful. It's an 8-inch figure, action figure, and they did a beautiful job. So,
Congratulations. Wow.
so
That
this is the first piece of my coming back with an action figure, and everybody can go to sybildanning.net and they can look at it. It's a limited edition. I'm selling them. I'm going to Chiller, so I don't forget to tell you that. I'm going to Chiller on the 29th, 30th, and 31st of October. I'll be there for their huge 30th anniversary.
wow.
So, yes, Kevin is having his 30th anniversary, and he had to, and we all had to cancel that 3 times because of the pandemic.
Because of the pandemic.
And for 20, in April of that year.
Yeah.
And so now we're finally going to have it. So it's going to be huge, it's going to be beautiful, and I'll have my figures there with me. It's limited edition, so I don't have that many left, but a lot have been already ordered and shipped out. So,
That's a great way. That's a great statement with Chiller and the action figure to say, you know what, Hollywood, I'm back. I'm
yay.
back and get ready. Now, back in the 80s, the term B movies was very prominent. Okay. Now we live in a world with digital streaming that term has sort of faded in the background because B movies in the 80s were considered low budget films. Nowadays, with technology and the equipment, you can make a movie for $10,000 and have it look great, the acting, the script, top notch. You back in the day made you created a brilliant career for yourself, starring in what was considered these B movies. Great movies, but were considered B movies. And, it just goes to show you how smart you are into, was it because you just embraced what was coming your way and you made the most of the opportunity that you possibly could?
Well, I must say I had a little bit of help. I had a wonderful manager at that time who's no longer with us, and he always said to me, he said, you're beautiful and you're sexy anyhow. Nobody's accused you of being a man or looking like a man. And so he said, why not take you're beautiful anyhow, but take that inner strength that you have and start playing roles that men play, because again, it was the era of
Hmm.
Reagan, and politics so much has to do with what films do and what we do as a society and where we are politically, etc. So, you know, so I did Pompeii and Sword and Sorcery in that movie, and that was for Vestron at that time, a video
Yes.
movie. And like you said, but we went to Rome. We did it in Rome. It had a very nice budget, and I played a woman with a sword that helps to free the women of slavery in Pompeii.
You kicked
So
ass.
so why not? Okay, and there I got to be beautiful and sexy and swing a sword and ride a horse, and it was deliberate. It was deliberate, but it was deliberately filling the gap that was not being done
Hmm.
because the studios were not producing those kind of movies. And a, a journalist not so long ago said to me, Angelina Jolie came along and did a big studio movie and was basically what you did. But that was again at a time where the studios were back doing and started doing, she was one of the first, doing those kind of roles for the studios.
Hmm.
So while there was that gap, um, Roger Corman came along and I did Battle Beyond the Stars, which is basically the Seven Samurai in outer space. And I'm the only woman that goes along with the men to fight.
Yeah.
So there you go. So it was those kind of movies that my manager and I were looking for and to fill the gap. In Amazon Women on the Moon, I got the offer to play the president's wife. And I go in to see Robert Weiss, the wonderful Robert Weiss. And he was the director. And we're waiting in the waiting room, and my manager's reading upside down, and he says, "What is that?" And he said, "Oh, that's a role, but we're not casting till next week." And he said, "Well, I see that's the role of an Amazon queen." And she said, "Yeah." And he said, "Okay, thank you." So he said, "Sybil, so when you go in to see the director, tell him you want to play the Amazon queen, not the wife of the president." So that's exactly what I did. When I walked in, he said, "Oh, so I see you're here for this." And I say, "No, I'm your Amazon queen."
Wow.
He said, "Oh my God, yeah, you would be right for that. Oh my God, yes." And so there, I ended up being,
An Amazon queen.
and they even named the whole movie because they had those wonderful, it was like Kentucky Fried Movie, and they couldn't come up with a title. And one day I actually meet Bob Weiss, and he's gonna kill me for this, but I meet him in the store, and he was smelling one of those markers, the
Yeah.
markers that you work with, and I said, "Aha, caught you sniffing, huh?" And I said, "So what's the title of our movie?" And he said, "You know what? I'm gonna call the whole movie Amazon Women on the Moon." I said, "Really? You've got so much going?" He said, "Yeah. We all decided we love your segment and we're going to do that." And so that's what happened. And you remember my most famous line in there, right?
No, I'm
I
sorry.
get up when Travolta looks up to me and says, no, when, my God, Lana Clarkson, who we'd lost,
Hmm.
the late Lana Clarkson, who played like the lady in waiting to the queen. She was there talking to when the men come on our moon. She's talking to Travolta, and she looks him up and down, and then she looks to me and she says, "My queen, what are men good for?" And I get up out of my throne and look over one shoulder and say, "Men are useless." So So that's how another great role came about.
Now, you said you were doing these roles deliberately. Was this you trying to empower women in Hollywood, or were these roles just your personal preference? Or a little bit of both?
Both.
Oh, there you
No,
go.
absolutely both. Because You spoke about chained heat. I always felt that my movies were never preachy, but I think the roles that I played empowered women.
Mm-hmm.
And I tell you, one day I walked in a restaurant and this lovely African American waitress comes to me and she does a double take and she looks at me again and she's, "You're Sybil Danning? Are you Sybil Danning?" And I said, "Yes." She said, "Oh my God, I loved you in Chained Heat." She said, there was a moment where I was going to lose my job. And I was so afraid to lose my job, and I didn't want to lose my job. And then I remembered seeing you, how you fought in Chained Heat, and you fought for the rights and your rights. And I said, I'm going to be Sybil Dan. I'm going to fight for my job. And
Wow.
she said, you know what? I didn't lose my job. I got my job. I
Wow.
picked up the courage and I spoke with authority and I said, I'm going to do this and I will do this. And I kept my job. Thank you. Thank you. And can I give you a hug? And she hugged me. And it's moments like that that make me feel good. And, you don't always know when you get a script what's going to be in there. But I liked I like the spirit. Yes, first
Mm-hmm.
it was the white gang and the black gang, with Tamara Dobson, the leader, and me, the leader, and fighting the black team, and she's fighting the white team. But in the end, we got together and we fought the authorities that were doing us all wrong. And so there was a message in that, and that helped this girl. That helped this girl the way I fought. So even though the movies were entertaining, they were not really to send messages. There are messages in things, and there is one thing that I did not want to play at that time, and I was offered that, and I must tell you, and I'm on a show now. I'll probably lose some of my fans, but I was offered to play a victim in a horror movie, and I said, I really don't want to play a victim in a horror movie because the victims are always women in horror movies, and
Mm-hmm.
it's like, oh yeah, let's go, chop up women, let's go kill women, and it's not really what I want to do. But I said it's not that I'm against violence because I do violence in
Mm-hmm.
movies, but I've always felt if men can do it, women should do it. So I said, if you want to change that killer to a woman, let me be a woman, okay? And let me go out and kill the guys for a change. Let's do a reversal. And they said, oh no, that would change totally the story. And I said, okay, I wish you good luck with it. Thank you. So, yes, sometimes I have gotten, or when I really felt there was something very bad against, for instance, well, I can tell you a huge movie that I turned down. It was Robert Weiss's movie. Uh, oh God, he did it right after Amazon Women on the Moon. And anyhow, the woman's character, it'll come back to me in a minute. The woman's character has big breasts, and people are constantly making fun of her breasts in the movie, and uh, and they wanted me to have big breasts in Amazon Women on the Moon because that was the time and the look and everything. And he said, "Oh, come on, it's a comedy." And I said, yeah, but I still don't like that idea because there are a lot of women with big breasts, and I don't want them to feel that that's a bad thing, or they should be, or empower anybody to make fun of women's breasts. So I I turned it down. He said, I can't believe you. I said, well, I'm sorry. I actually went to the premiere of his movie, but I did not. I
You see, but
turned down the role in a big studio movie. It
that
was a
takes
comedy, but I just didn't feel comfortable in that role.
that takes courage. That's courage right
Or
there.
stupidity.
No, no, no. It's courage, and I applaud you for that. In Amazon Women, wasn't Michelle Pfeiffer also in that movie?
Yes, she was. Yeah.
I
Hmm.
mean, this is. I mean, if you look at the cast now with you, Michelle Pfeiffer. I mean, it was an amazing movie that was put back then. And I always tell people that history is the judge of where a movie is going to sit. Don't listen to the critics when a movie comes out right away. The critics are not the judge. Time is going to be the judge of where a movie falls into place over time. So let's go now to
Can
2000.
I say something to that?
Absolutely.
It's actually also funny. You see what I have back here?
Yes.
You see who's back there?
Well, no, not clearly. No, I can't see clearly who the.
Christopher Lee.
Oh,
That's Christopher Lee and me in The Howling 2,
yes.
The Death Kiss. And it's funny, I just want to say, because you said time will tell about films, um, it's so funny because, well, The Howling 1, I know there are so many people that say The Howling 1 is the best, The Howling 2 is the best, and the rest, there's. But Joe Dante and I, we had for a while, we had this thing where Joe Dante and I would meet somewhere and I'd say, "Oh, I like yours," and he'd say, "Oh no, but I really like yours." I said, "Okay," and that was. I love his howling, he loves my howling. So, but when you read, talking about critics, when you read, of course, The Howling One is taken very seriously, and
Yes.
we didn't have Rob Bottin doing, our werewolves.
Mm-hmm.
But then again, when we got our costumes in the Czech Republic, Philippe Mora, our director, called Hollywood and said, "Hello, we're not doing Planet of the Apes. We're doing The Howling 2. You send us ape outfits." So the costume designers and everyone in the Czech Republic had to make do and rework those costumes.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's an amazing story. Now, you
So there's
were.
so much, difference between the two movies and then our movie. The critics usually start by saying, "Oh, you know what? I really hate that movie," but then they end up saying, "Yeah, but that was funny and that was fun," and oh, no, Sybil Danning, the scene.
I enjoyed them both. I really enjoyed them both. Was
You
the
can't compare
Howling?
them really, right? You can't compare them.
No, no, they're two different movies.
Yeah.
Would you? Was the Howling your first foray into horror?
No, actually, it's interesting because some people say, "Oh my God, yeah, you've done a lot of horror, right?" And then,
No.
like you say, "Is that because?" No, I haven't done much horror.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, I have one movie that I will be bringing with me. Also, it's called The Red Queen Kills Seven Times. I did that in '72 with Barbara Boucher, and that was shot in Italy and in Germany, and it has a huge following still among fans today. But I can't tell you actually what other real horror movie. I did one called Julie Darling. That was a German movie with Anthony Francioso and Canada.
Mm-hmm.
We shot it in Berlin and Toronto.
Did you
So
stay away from horror because of, like you said, women were the victims, except for The Last Girl Standing? You would see a lot of women, back in the 80s, camp counselors or whatever, teenage girls getting slaughtered. And then at the end of the movie, there would be the famous last girl standing. Is that why you sort of try to stay away from horror movies?
that was one reason. Then, of course, I don't know what all my manager. I'm sure that there were a lot of offers in the '80s or even later. Well, actually, the '80s that came along that he didn't tell me about. Um, because that was just an understanding that I was not interested
Yeah,
to play those roles. Yeah. So actually, my famous ones are
The Howling.
The Howling 2, and of course Halloween.
So,
Halloween, and I was lucky to get in there.
well, let's talk about Halloween. You had a small role in Halloween 2. I mean,
It
sorry,
got
Halloween
smaller.
1.
It got smaller. It started out bigger.
You were the nurse that was sent in to watch Michael Myers while Dr. Loomis walked Michael's mother outside, and Michael kills you.
Yes.
What did Rob Zombie approach you personally to take on this role? Was he a fan of yours? How did it come? How did that role come your way?
That's a very interesting question and an interesting answer, because Halloween actually was not the movie that he wanted me to do.
Oh.
He is a fan of mine, yes, but this is how it happened. You know Ken Foray.
Mm-hmm.
And I have been a fan of Rob Zombie's, and I like the fact that he puts his wife in good
Sherry.
good
Yeah.
roles.
Yeah.
And I watched The Devil's Rejects, and I liked it.
Oh.
And I
Oh.
told Ken Foray, I said, I would like to work with Rob. Can you give me his phone number? And he said, oh, I can't do that. But you know what? I will tell him that you would like to work with him. And I said, please do, and tell him that I really liked The Devil's Rejects, and I like Sherry's role in there, and I love that he gives women strong roles.
Mm-hmm.
And so one day, I don't get a call back from Ken, but like a week later, I get a call from Rob Zombie's office. It's not Rob, it's someone in his office that says, could you please come and meet with Rob on, I forget what day it was, Thursday at 4 o'clock at the studio. And I said, yes, certainly, I'll be there. Looking forward to it. And I thought we're going to have a meeting, a general hello kind of meeting.
Well, let me guess. It was an audition.
So I walk in and they say, oh, please this way. Mr. Zombie's in here. He was in the makeup room. It wasn't his office, it was the makeup room. And he's sitting there looking at two wigs, and he says, hi, Sybil. He says, I was thinking you and Sherry could have these wigs. You like them? You know, you're both going to play the Croup sisters, and I think that would work great in Werewolf Women of the SS. And I said, yeah, I love it. That's how that went, just like that.
Wow.
So, and then that was, that was that. And so he says, okay, we'll be in touch. And I said, okay, I'm tickled to death. He said, we'll send you the script. And then I said, I have something for you because I brought something. And they said that he was over there. And I said, where can I put this? And I brought him a poster of The Howling 2 and the movie. Not knowing if he had it, if he wanted it. I just wanted to give it to him because it was around his birthday. And I wanted to give him a little gift. So I said to him, there's something in your office. And I left it for you. And he said, oh, well, we'll have to go see that. So then we went to his office and he saw his poster and he saw the video. And he said, I love that movie. Thank you so much. And he's a big collector. He's a very big collector. And he was so happy to get it. And he said, you have to sign it. And of course I signed it.
Of course.
And then I left. And but before I left, and while I was in his office and I signed it, I looked up and he had all these headshots. And it said Halloween. And I said, oh my God, I'd love to be in Halloween. Do you have anything left in there for me? I don't care what role it is. Coming from you, I don't care what role it is. I said, I'd love to be in there. And he said, let me give it some thought. Right now, everything is cast, but let me give it some thought. And we never spoke again. I just followed up on Werewolf Women of the SS and got the script and all that, and I did, wardrobe fitting and everything, and then I went and shot. And then we shot on it. And one day, as we are, I'm in my trailer, and there's a knock on the door, and I say, come in, and it's Rob. And he hands me some pages, and he said, Sybil, I think you'll have fun with this role. You can play, she's like the nurse, Rancid, from One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. read this and tell me if you want to do it. I said, I will. Yes, I do. And I thank you. Closed the door and left. He was busy, you know. So there it was. There was the role for Halloween. And I was then we shot, and then after that I was called in for a fitting, and I remember it was the same thing. He was in there, and he picks things. He picks wardrobe, or at least he did with me. I walked in and he said, "You okay with this? Because I don't want you to look sexy or beautiful or anything. This woman is not sexy or beautiful or anything." And then he said, and I said, "Yeah, fine. I'm playing a role." And he left. And then the first day that we were shooting, he was in the makeup room, and he went in when he knew I was there, and he said to the makeup lady, he said, "You make sure Sybil doesn't look beautiful. Okay, do whatever you can. I know that's difficult, but do
It
what you
is.
can. I don't want her looking beautiful. She's got to look like Nurse Wynn. Okay." So there you go. And you saw the
Wow.
pictures. That's what came out of it. I had that ugly nurse outfit that went way down over my knees, and the normal nurse shoes and everything. And so that's what it is.
And you turned your back on Michael Myers, which was a big mistake.
Yes, yeah. And
What
I
did
guess I
you
was too nice to him either, so that kind of ticked him off. I call
exactly?
that the forking picture. You put it up today. I saw that.
Yeah. What did you
You
what
get
did
that
you
picture up. I call it the forking picture.
death by
And
fork?
then I put up, I don't know if you saw it, and I send out in my social media, I
Yeah.
call it post forking. That's the bloody picture. Post forking, yeah.
You have the before and after.
Yeah, exactly.
So
Hmm.
you just
Yeah,
told us you became a fan of Rob Zombie from seeing The Devil's Rejects.
yeah.
What was it like actually working with him on the set, with him behind the camera? I've interviewed a lot of people who Rob directed, and they all say he is very detail oriented on the set. Would you agree or disagree with that?
Absolutely. But at the same time, he lets you do what you want to do, or at least, again, I can only speak for myself because, you know, he, when he picks someone, he knows why he picks them. And then he's not going to say, "Well, I picked that person because I know what they do, so now I'm going to tell them to do something or be somebody totally different." The only time he mixed in was in the wardrobe and with the look, with the makeup and the look for the nurse. In um, Werewolf Women of the SS, Sherry and I had the same sexy outfit, so that didn't make any difference. But no, the only time he had something was very specific was my nurse's look and
Mm-hmm.
the wardrobe. On set, um, he knew that he knew I knew my role, and he picked me for the role because he knew I would do it and I could do it. So um, no, he is like I remember working with Richard Fleischer when I did Crossed Swords, and I played Ernie Borgnine's pregnant wife, and
Mm-hmm.
he has to mistreat me. And this was really the beginning of my career. I was still in Europe, and it was one of my first big American movies. And I went to him and I said, "Do you think I should play it this way or that way?" And he said, "Sybil, give me what you got. If I don't like it, I'll let you know." That was Richard Fleischer.
Huh.
Um, Rob knows exactly what he wants, but he's not the kind of director that will say, "Now go here, sit down, smoke with your right hand, look over here, and then say your line." No, he hires who he likes, and he hires them all the time. You see that.
Mm-hmm.
Because everybody that was in, I mean, not everybody, but a lot of people that were
Oh yeah,
in,
he works with his actors. I mean, you could tell he likes to bring his people along to different projects.
yes, yes. So, Udo Kier, we were together in, Werewolf Women of the SS, and Tom Tolles, who's no longer with us, he was in both movies, and um, so he he loves to take people, and he takes them because he knows what they can bring and what they're going to do. So um, if he doesn't like something, I could see, yes, he will let you know in a heartbeat.
Okay.
First, he lets you be, but the greatest directors that I've worked with, and they haven't been that many, are all like that.
So it's a rarity. It's not that common to get the really great directors. I mean, of course, not naming any names, but directors like Rob Zombie are the exception in
Yeah.
Hollywood.
Hmm.
Okay, all right. Now, I normally ask actors what movie they consider was their big break. From listening to our conversation, and I can't believe we're almost out of time, it sounds for you that Playboy shoot is what skyrocketed your career. Do you agree with that?
I don't want to say skyrocketed, but let's put it this way. I saw it as my calling card because I came when I had just done and the Entebbe movie, which
Mm-hmm.
was called Operation Thunderbolt. The Israeli title was Mitzvah Yonatan, which is the mission Yonatan. Um, was screened, and we were nominated for best foreign film. People knew of that, but they also knew of the magazine.
Yes.
And to me, but it wasn't like, oh, we really loved you in that, because I went on to do things like Simon and Simon, and I played a terrorist in that, but a sexy one, and they
Mm-hmm.
had me in a bathing suit on the Queen Mary. Okay, so um, I played, I was doing a lot of guest starring roles, like with Rex Smith, who's now going to be at Chiller
Mm-hmm.
on Street Hawk. And there I was a Vegas dancer in a sexy outfit, and the next moment I'm in jeans and, and sitting on a motorcycle. Um, so um, it was a combination. I think it was a combination. Uh, yes, they did want me for that, but I think everything I did was kind of already mixed with also strong roles. They
Yes.
weren't just nude roles. You know what I mean?
Yes.
So it was already a mixture of those two roles. Here I played the unattractive terrorist, and here I was the nude, sexy woman. Had 10 pages inside, that wasn't bad. So, yes, that did help. But then again, the roles were combined with also with action.
Yes. Power. You are the majority of your roles, you play a strong, powerful woman. Nobody can argue that. Along with doing movies after the Playboy shoot, where did you find yourself getting offers for other shoots, modeling gigs as well?
No, no. I hated modeling. I mean, I started out as a model in Europe, in Austria, in my home country. Um, I started there, and then I worked in Italy. I went as far as to Japan, and then in Germany. But I hated it. I didn't like the changing of clothes, and I really didn't care for it. I did it because it paid well,
Mm-hmm.
and it was my stepping stone to movies because I was basically um, discovered by a movie director who had seen pictures of me in a very famous Austrian photographer's studio.
Yes.
And he was going through the pictures and saw my pictures and said, "Who's that?" And said, "I want her to play Lorelai." So it was like a stepping stone, and I was very happy to go into movies. Even though, again, movies were not something I craved for all my life. I didn't. Neither the modeling either. It was just to make money because I, growing up in Austria and then living over there in Austria, um, I had a diploma in cosmetology, which came in very, very handy later on because I
Hmm.
can do my own makeup, and most of the time I did. Um, and I have my my diploma in that, and I really loved that. But when I wanted to open up my own salon in Salzburg, the beautiful Salzburg, um, the government said, "Wait a minute, no, we have 5 salons. We don't need a sixth." That's what, not communism. I mean, Austria is socialist, very
Yes.
socialist. So I didn't like that. So when I, you know, could work as a cosmetologist and have the opportunity because it was also a modeling agency,
Hmm.
I said, wow, I make more in one night than I do a whole week working as a working as a cosmetologist after I had made my diploma. So it was always I wanted to, do better
Hmm.
and make more money. Yeah.
Wow.
So the modeling did that, but I didn't enjoy it. And then
Wow.
the movies was a stepping stone to something that I really enjoyed. And I always said when I was in my first American movie, I remember it so well. It was Hungry, it was Bluebeard with
Yeah.
Rachel Burton. And
Yeah.
I'm sitting in the makeup room. I come in the first morning in the makeup room and I'm hearing Neil Diamond. I am, I said. And I said, this is my kind of world. In the little movies in Austria and in Europe, you're doing your makeup behind the tree. And here I am in a studio. I'm in a makeup room and I'm listening to Neil Diamond. And people are nice. And I'm not saying that the Europeans are not nice, but I mean, it's just a whole different feeling.
Yeah.
I felt I was in an occupation that was taken seriously. I was taken seriously, and it was a beautiful surrounding, a beautiful environment. And I said, that's what I want. And when they offered me to go around Europe for a Francis Durbridge play, that I was almost going to take because that was very good, all those German speaking territories,
Hmm.
Austria, Switzerland, Germany. I said, well, if I do that, that's going to be years. Or am I going to go to Hollywood? And guess what?
You went to Hollywood. Good
I
move.
said, I don't need the theater. I don't need that immediate. I like Hollywood. I like
Good
what's going
move.
on in Hollywood. So there you go.
Wow, Sybil, talking to you, I mean, like I said, I grew up watching you on the screen. You have to be one of the strongest, smartest women I have ever met. There's no surprise now how you've had this storied career and it's still going and you're going strong. It's been an absolute honor, and that just word doesn't do justice to what I'm feeling right now to talk to you for this past hour. Thank you so much for sharing all these stories with us. And I hope young women today who watch this can get some inspiration from what you just said in the last hour because I think it's very inspirational. It was true back in the 60s, 70s, 80s, and it's true today. So thank you so much for joining us and sharing all these stories. Is there any final thoughts you want to share before we say goodbye?
I want to say thank you to you, John, for having me. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it
Yeah.
because I am working on 3 projects: one action, one thriller, one vampire movie.
Can you
I have
tell
a
us the
lot of
titles, or they're not titled yet?
uh, the vampire movie is untitled
Okay.
because I have a great title, but I'm not going to give it out because I don't want it stolen by
Good.
anybody until it's out. But I would love to come back when I have
Yes.
something exciting and new to talk about. Meanwhile, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it, and I have
It is my
also
honor.
enjoyed so much talking to you. And thank you for all the compliments that you have given me.
It's true. I meant every word. It is absolutely true, and I would love to have you back when your movies come out so we can talk some more about them, because literally this hour just flew by and we only touched on just a very small fraction of what we could talk about. Thank you so much. Thank you so much to everybody who tuned in tonight. Thank you again to the great Sybil Danning, the legendary Sybil Danning, for being our guest. Everyone stay safe, and until next time, on behalf of Sybil Danning and myself, stay walking. And stay walking, Sybil, means that when life kicks you down, you pick yourself back up and you keep moving. That's why I always end my show with that phrase. So always stay walking, guys. Good night.